I'm really, really excited, everyone. We have got Alex and Max here, and this is our kind of trio of interviews that I've done over the last 3 weeks, because it just seems to be all about supported living at the moment. So I really felt this needed a broad spectrum of people to talk to. So we had Lisa Brown, we had 3 people that are just starting out on their journey and the pitfalls and things that they've had. And now we've got Alex and Max, who are absolutely smashing it, and also looking to help other people jump on board and move forward as well. So what I'm going to do is, we are currently on Clubhouse, we're on Facebook Live, and we will also be on YouTube later on this afternoon, which is Emma Howitt, Pure Abodes. So please, guys, I can see we haven't got many people on yet. So if you guys could ping, I'm going to ping a load of people now, while I ask Alex and Max, for those people that perhaps don't know you, if you wouldn't mind just giving a quick intro to yourselves, that would be amazing.
Yeah, do you want to do it?
Oh, I can go, yeah. So hello everybody, thanks for having us on. I'm very excited to be here to enjoy today. So I'm Max Rayner and this is Alex Baker, best friends from primary school. So we've been through it all together and decided to go into business in property in 2017. Our story's a bit of a unique one. I don't know many best friends from primary school that are in property together that have stood the test of time. But we have a property investment and development company called Stuart Clinton Property. Obviously got nothing to do with Max and Alex. And actually what happened was, Stuart, who was my father, he passed away when I was 16, and I inherited his house with my sister. And that was my first sort of seed into property. And then Alex's father, we call Clinton, and unfortunately passed away when he was 22. So we clinked heads together and decided that we wanted to live a life where we can enjoy ourselves along the way. So we loved the passive income aspect of property at the time, to enjoy all the things that life has to offer while we can, because you're never promised to retire and have it all then, as we learned from our dads, unfortunately. So we fittingly decided to name Stuart Clinton Property after them, as they were the sole reason why we got into property. Started off doing HMOs in the early days, a lot of high-end co-living, student-style types of properties. Fell out of love with it pretty quickly, to be honest with you. It was really all about financial freedom and how much profit and how many properties can we buy, which is completely wrong. When you look at any business, you want to have your real focus on the impact and what you're doing above and beyond just for yourselves. And then over COVID, found supported living and care, more particularly mental health, which resonated with us as 2 young guys losing our dads, and we haven't looked back ever since. So we do these amazing care homes and supported living facilities, and somehow have managed to win an award for pretty much every one we've done, which is nice, because you don't always see, especially when you're caught up in the hustle and bustle of everything, what everyone else is doing. You're very tunnel vision. So we're obviously doing something right. And more recently, we've had a lot of people off the back of our exposure and our reputation that's continuing to grow within the industry, with people asking for us to mentor or consult on their deals. So we created the supported living platform. So not only do we develop our own projects, but we now mentor, educate and coach our clients to do it for themselves, because it is a amazing industry. It's a necessary industry. There's a lot of demand and a lot of people are talking about it right now, as you mentioned, Emma. But a lot of people are getting it wrong, and it's very hard to get into if you don't know what you're doing. The pitfalls can be quite big quite soon. We've been there, we've earned the scars, so we know where they are, and now we help other people. Hopefully that's a very quick, semi-quick sort of idea of who we are and what we're about.
Amazing. No, absolutely. Really, really great intro there. Thank you for that. So goodness, that was going to be one of my questions, Stuart Clinton. So that really is such a moving accolade, isn't it, to your family, to your both your dads, and how lovely to be able to turn that into such a, you know, genuinely giving property strategy. Because it can be said, can't it, that, you know, some of the strategies you know, are great, and I think you help people, but inherently I'm a huge fan of Think and Grow Rich and Napoleon Hill and all of those kind of things, and it's all about the more people that you can serve and help, then actually the better you do yourself. So if we can do that in a really positive way, then it's going to really make some big differences there.
The candle loses no light, lighting another candle. We like to think about it that way.
Yeah, that's really not. I've not heard that one before.
There you go.
Well done, very nice.
Just off the cuff, that one. I've got all in there. Don't you worry.
Have you got ChatGPT in the background there? Is that what you did?
He's a robot.
I love it.
But yeah, you know, having your business named after your dad's, it keeps you honest, keeps you true, gets you up in the morning on those difficult mornings when you know you've got a load of work to do and it's raining outside. It really is our strength, and the fact that we now have what we would like to think is, you know, quite a noble goal and something that's bigger than just us. Once it all started to click in place and we realised that this was a genuine industry that we could go into and use all of our skills, knowledge, and experience that we had learned over the past few years, it was that moment of, this is what we are meant to do. Like it really was one of those moments where like, this is exactly what we are meant to be doing. And yeah, we've loved every day ever since. It's a real, there's a lot of passion in it for us, as you can probably hear in our voices when we talk about it.
Exactly. No, and I love that. And you have got to, like, that's what I found is that as my sort of career has progressed, there's been certain parts, aren't there, that you think, oh, I love this. I really love this. And then there are other parts where it's kind of like, oh, it's a bit of drudgery. But I kind of pinch myself. I get to basically talk to people about property, and I love talking to people and I love property. So it's just like, oh, it's an absolute winner. It's a real result. And getting paid for it at the same time is really fantastic. So just sort of stepping back a little bit so we can sort of understand a bit more about you, because obviously for some people, they're potentially right at the beginning of their journey. And probably like yourselves, it's I know that you started off in HMOs, and generally, and for me too, I started off with serviced accommodation, and I started off with rent-to-rent serviced accommodation. I literally, you know, I had to make a change. I didn't cut. I needed to make some money. I needed to make it pretty fast to start making those changes. Now, obviously, with supported living, it's not quite such a direct path at the moment, it would seem. So just talk us back. How you did start, just to sort of inspire other people how your journey began in property and what made you choose it. So it was your dad leaving a property, was it?
Yeah. So what happened was my dad passed away in 2009, and he wasn't with my mum, and he didn't have a will. So everything he had, which wasn't actually a lot, we don't come from wealth, 1-bedroom property that he lived in, came to myself and my sister. I was 16, my sister Ella was 14 when he passed. So my mum and my granddad, my dad's dad, had control of our inheritance, our estate, or whatever you want to call it, until we were 18. And my granddad was the one that said, look, you should, allow me to put a bit of your money into doing up your dad's house. I don't think you should sell it. I think you should keep it and rent it out. Which at the time I was like, no thanks, Grandad, because as soon as I get that money when I'm 18, I'm going on holiday, I'm getting a Mercedes, I'm going to go and help myself designer clothes, like any 16-year-old boy would dream of doing. But he convinced me. We didn't really have much of a choice. And what it taught me very early, by the time I was 18, I had an asset that was kicking off money every month that I wasn't physically putting in man hours to get. And it sort of clicked in my head. And I was like, oh, this is all right. Alex, we went to the same school, obviously. I dropped out sort of around the time it all happened. My dad all happened. And Alex continued with a bit more education and then got a job as an engineer. And I decided to go and become a ski instructor and lived in Switzerland. Which
whereabouts?
Was quite
Verbier. Oh, me too. I did my season out there.
No way.
Yeah.
So talk about Fahrenheit and the Rouge and all of that another time. But as you know, very expensive area, and I didn't have a lot of money to take out there with me. So being out there as a ski instructor and getting my wage and my rent top up allowed me to afford to live out there. And Alex saw it from the sidelines, which I guess you can sort of elaborate on.
And I was sat there in my concrete box working in engineering for the past few years thinking, God, he's living the dream out there, isn't he? This property stuff's brilliant. So when I unfortunately lost my dad, I was in the same situation. My parents weren't together. Dad didn't have a will. So everything that he had came to me and my little sister. So this was a point when I went to Max and I was like, this property stuff looks pretty damn good, doesn't it? Why don't you teach me how to do it? And he basically said, I don't really know what I'm doing. My granddad set it up and it's just kind of paying me. So we knew, every person who is, maybe 50 and above that is doing well for themselves, they have some kind of property investments. So we could see plain and clear that this was a good idea and there was something in this. So we basically, put our heads together, got educated, and started investing as young 23-year-old kids, basically. We had to use our own money to begin with because, like I said, who's going to invest in 23-year-olds with no real experience?
What I will elaborate on that, we did use up every penny that we had, but it wasn't a lot. It wasn't enough. So we still had to borrow and, use mortgages and credit cards and family and angels, and we did all that. But
it lasted like 1.5 projects. But we needed to get that kind of 1-2 over the line so that people could see that we could actually deliver what we said we were going to.
The key, what I will go back to there, is that education point. It's so key. No matter who you use, it is so important in any business, not just property. If you don't quite know what you're doing, get educated. And if you think that you know it all, you don't. We still don't. People that we know that have been in the industry for 40 years still don't. So continue with that education.
Yeah.
But we learned, really buy-to-lets are great and they were a good sort of start point, but they're not, you can't make a career out of them. They're not going to make you rich. Long-term equity sides can be all right if you pick the right ones. They'll kick off a bit of beer money, but they're not, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless you've got 500 of them, and that'll take quite a long time, I think.
Yeah.
Then we decided, like everybody else, when we got educated, how do we make more money out of the same properties that we're buying? HMOs. Got into HMOs. Did quite well again. We learned. You can see from my story, we were young, we were hungry, we didn't have anything to lose. We didn't have, I guess we're in the fortunate position of not having kids, both living with parents. So if it went wrong, we're going to be in the same place. Taking bigger risks young because we could. Built up the portfolio quite quickly using leverage, using investors, using anything we could, and learning about location, what a good investment looks like and all that sort of stuff. But it fell apart really because we decided that we didn't like HMOs. We started to hate our tenants when they didn't pay, when they trashed the place, making excuses. Oh, I got rude. When you get educated, no one tells you that the boiler breaks every month and that there's leaks all the time. And no matter how good a job you do, and that to us, we were getting really annoyed at, and we shouldn't. And then that was where, fast forward 2017 to COVID, we were sitting there. It was like, we've got this great portfolio of HMOs. 2019. 2019. Got this great portfolio of HMOs. We're financially free. We're pissed off all the time. This isn't right. This isn't what we signed up for. The supported living era for us was born, and we haven't looked back.
Yeah, and a big thing that kind of kicked our passion was when we started to get into it and started making inroads with some care providers. We asked them to show us their properties, and they were okay, but they weren't great. And the way we kind of sold it and the way that we decided that we were going to change the industry is take the blueprint from high-end co-living HMOs and just plop that into care. There's absolutely no reason why somebody who's receiving care should be living in a property that's any worse than what we would live in. If anything, they need it to be better for their recovery, right? Especially in something like mental health. And then we start going out, doing viewings, sourcing, seeing old care homes. And gradually over time, we realized this is an industry that needs help. This is an industry that is being taken advantage of by people who are ripping profits out of it, providing poor property, some care providers providing really, subpar care. And wherever the money is, siphoned off or not put in the right places, it always comes down to the one person who suffers is the care user, the resident, right? And we realized that this needed to change. So everything that we do is really trying to drive that change. We've got 2 goals. We want to increase the provision of care and supported living across the UK and also increase the standard, because the more care homes that are out there that are of a good standard means that all of these crap ones and these guys who are just making stupid money off of rubbish properties that should never be anywhere near care and supported living, they'll stop getting referrals and they'll eventually drop off, like all of your kind of rogue landlords are at the moment.
Yeah, I really love that. And going back to sort of the training stuff, a lot of it that is quite scary. And I know you'll have experienced this a lot. You don't know what you don't know. And, simple things like, there's 50 ways of saving or negating stamp duty. There's so many tax mitigations. There's so many things that will be, certainly from supported living, I'll have no idea about. And until you've got somebody who can confidently help you, you literally don't know what you don't know. And it kind of makes me laugh when people say, oh yeah, but you can find it all on YouTube. Well, if you don't know what you're looking for, how can you find it on YouTube? It's kind of like there's only so many podcasts that you can listen to in the hope that a nugget might come up that you don't know. So
you certainly can. In this day and age, you can go out there, and the freedom of information that we have access to now is I could probably teach myself law, for example. You can find all of it, but you need someone that's doing it. And when when that hurdle pops up, you could have weeks and months worth of stress trying to research it, but having someone there that's doing it and's like, oh, don't worry about it, mate. It's almost like that going on the internet doesn't give you accountability. It doesn't give you motivation. It doesn't push you when you need a push. And a lot of people can talk themselves out of doing stuff because they feel like they don't know enough. And sometimes not knowing things can serve you in the right way because you step into it. And Alex and I don't know everything about supported living and care, and we never will. But we know enough to know the big risks and where the hurdles are likely to be. But we always, and every single business venture project that we've done, we know enough to make sure that we're not going to sink ourselves, but we're not scared that when that hurdle comes to go, we'll deal with it. How do we get around it? And I think that's the mindset that you need to well, if you spend the whole time researching, joining every course and trying to know it all, you won't do anything.
Yeah. And it's definitely on the job stuff, isn't it? I've got a lady who's literally just started with her first rent to rent. And it's just all those practical questions as well, isn't it? So you can do a course, can't you? But you need that support as well. What does this mean on booking.com or what, and it's kind of like, it's those things that is, I remember starting out, those are the things that would almost make me weep because it's like, really? I've done all of this research and now there's this one thing that's stopping me from taking the next step. And it's, it can be so frustrating. So I'm just a huge fan. So just talking through what you just said, you've talked about having these, 2 incredible goals, to increase the provision of supported living and also to increase the standards. So you basically, where you just spoke about, you've got this kind of portfolio of really good, decent quality HMOs that are currently more like a co-living. So that would be, to anyone who doesn't know, that's kind of like a really high-end HMO. You really encourage people to get to know each other really well. They really get to love the fact that they are in this much nicer kind of environment, and therefore they tend to sort of grow as a unit and want to stay there for longer. You also mentioned, out in the market, and I've seen it, some really poor quality properties where people are being paid crazy amounts of money. And also what's most upsetting for me is the amount of wasted money that's going on, money that, clearly if it just had been spent a little bit better, could therefore, rather than just helping one person, could have helped 20 people. So that's where, to me, it just seems such a terrible shame. Okay, so you started sort of, what was it, just the fact that you were potentially thinking, what else can we do with these HMOs that got you onto supported living, or how did that journey move?
Well, I think it was that brutal honesty with ourselves that was like, you don't care about your end user, and that's a bit of an issue. That's hard to say, but we didn't. The education system that we came up through, and losing our dads, and everything to us was about how many properties can I buy, how many units can I get, how much rent can I charge? It's money, how many. As opposed to what we really should have been thinking about is, how can we give this tenant the ultimate living experience? If you look at any business, take it away from property, why are Apple so big? Because they have simplified and given the customer the best and simplest experience of using a phone, right? So property, so many people get lost in it. I see it all the time. They go, I'll be having a chat with someone. They go, how many properties you got then? So it doesn't matter, mate. It shouldn't matter. And if you continue to focus on money, profit, how many, it makes the process clunky and you stop enjoying it. And we were just brutally honest, and we were saying, our business is flawed, man. We're never going to enjoy this if we continue to just focus on us. And that was where COVID hit, and it was like mental health crisis, homeless crisis, all of the crises, right? And we were like, surely there's a way. And that was where the business was built after our dad's passing, and we struggled with our own issues. How can we get a little bit more passionate about what we're doing? And that's where the penny dropped. It was like, surely we could use our HMO experience and put that into supported living and care. And then we started to learn a little bit about the industry. And I had a friend that was a landlord that leased a few of their properties to a care provider. And it just, it was all self-taught, and we were finding a little bit more about it. And we were both like, boom, this is where we're at. We went to view a few care homes, some really good ones, saw some bad ones, saw how happy the tenants were. And we were like, this is our meaning in property. This is how we're going to do it. And since then, we've only focused on impact. Like Alex said, can we raise the standard of care? How can we make it better for this crazy demand that is there, and these people that are living in subpar properties that are just going round and round and round in a cycle and never, getting anywhere.
And within our first year of being people driven and kind of passion driven, we tripled our portfolio.
Wow.
Through having a different focus and different goals. We have a saying, we like to put people before profit. And we truly believe that if you continue to focus on the impact that you're having, that the profit and the cash flow and all of that sort of stuff will come as a byproduct of you building a good reputation, continuing to do things right, always being in that top 5%. And it's exactly the way it's been for us over the past, 3.5 years or so.
You still need a little bit of a business model. That's not just say, don't worry about it. Just spend what you want.
Just give me the money. You'll be fine, boys.
Yeah, it's about moving away and having a purpose for the company and a mission for the company that's bigger and better than ourselves. And you'll see it. You go into any podcast, read any book. The people that are really thriving are the people that, their self, they are not trying to fulfill themselves. They're trying to do something bigger, and it makes it easier. I promise you, when you go out and try and raise money, when you negotiate on these deals, it's easier to do. It feels easier because you've got some passion and some drive, and people can see it.
We've got an interesting story actually. When we just did a 14 beds mental health care home conversion in Birmingham, and we were coming up against a developer that was a lot bigger than us. They wanted to knock the thing to the floor and build a load of flats there. The couple that had owned it for, I think it was about 15 years, had been running a learning disability care home there. I think she was ill, anyway, the business wasn't doing so well at the time, so they decided to sell it. We sat down with her and we just said, look, we simply cannot offer you as much as this other developer can. But we've walked around your care home. We've seen the passion that you have for these residents and for care and for the local community. We would like to continue your legacy that you've built over the past 15 years and have this building that you've, essentially built from the ground up, delivering care and having a positive social impact on the community. The next day we got a call from her and she said she was going with our offer that was lower than theirs. And that just is I love telling the story because it's a fantastic example of what doing social impact projects is all about, and the way that people are inherently good, right? People want to do good. And I think, that's a fantastic example of how doing these types of projects can get you into, different places or get you different deals that you might not have got before.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think it's always key, isn't it, to put this into sort of the correct perspective. I do believe that you need to fill up your own cup first before you can really help others. So obviously you started off in a certain mindset. Look, cripes, we need to get some money to be able to do the things that we want to do. And then once you got there, it's kind of like, oh, okay, this is not quite what I wanted it to be. And that is quite often. And what I find is if you can, along the way, just think about exactly like you've been saying, who can I help? Who are the more people can I help? So whether it's actually your service accommodation providers, or whether it is your tenant, or whether it's supported living, whatever that is, if you're providing the best service and helping as many others as you can, even like for me, and I did another interview with a fantastic chap, Lee Rubeck, all about leaving others with the impression of increase. So even just a smile walking down the street, all of these things make such a difference, whether you want to call it karma or any of those things. So I'm totally with you. So anyone who's kind of feeling like, oh, but I've got no money, I really need to get to the next level, absolutely, you must fill your cup first, but just think about the processes and the decisions you're making along the way. Because as you guys have said, it only took you a year to triple your portfolio. I mean, that's just absolutely phenomenal. So let's get down into those kind of nitty gritties, because I've spent a while now. We've got a hotel which is doing really well, but we love to sort of look at those other options, what's available, what might work for it. And it's and also we source properties, and it's a great thing to put in, especially for people who want to look to grow their portfolio in a really beneficial way for others. But it is just such a mess. It is literally the biggest mishmash I've ever seen in my entire life. There's kind of pots of money here, pots of money there. There's care providers, there's supported living providers, there's big houses, there's small houses, there's FRIs, there's non-FRIs, there's this. I mean, and nothing seems to match. You speak to the council and they start talking to you about normal tenants. You ask about, oh, I don't really, not my department. It just seems so disparate. But yet all the time, every day you're told, oh, there's massive demand for supported living. It's desperate. People are desperate. So where are we all going wrong? Where are we, is it literally this kind of quagmire that we need to step through?
I think it's about knowledge gaps. So, commissioners, care providers, housing associations and property developers, they all have slightly different goals, and they also don't know how to talk to each other properly. And when you get into the world of supported living and care, you are bombarded with, like you just said, care home, supported living. Do you want a bungalow? Do you want flats? Do you want a village? Do you want a hotel? Is it for asylum seekers? Is it for homeless? Is it learning disabilities? Is it domestic violence? Is it addiction? And people are like, gee, this is too much, man. I don't even, and that is that overwhelming feeling. I don't know where to start. Okay. What I would always recommend doing is obviously come speak to me and Alex because we'll help you with that. We've been there.
Yeah.
But we stay true to our passions and ourselves, right? And it takes a little while to understand the industry, certainly from a property investor and developer perspective. What resonates with you? is there, because it works everywhere, right? The majority, okay, probably it's hard. There are some areas that it's a little bit tricky, but the base model works everywhere. So is there something that really resonates with you? You know, is it, when it all gets a bit confusing, is it going to be worth your while? You know, do you have ties with someone who has learning disabilities? Or is mental health close to your heart because something resonates with you there? And hone down on the one industry that interests you, you know, first. And do a few projects there. And then maybe go and speak to some care providers that actually provide that service. And just keep it as small and as narrow as that. As soon as you go, I'm going to do supported living, or I'm going to do a care home, and you've got no idea what type of care or provision that you want to provide, it's going to go nuts, and it will be very difficult to get there. So start with the end user in mind and work backwards. Match the property or the project to them, because you can do supported living in a bungalow, you can do it in a flat, you can do a care village of 300 units. You know, it's so broad. So find your connection with what you're doing, because it is about that. And it's never going to work if you truly don't care. It's never going to work for you if you're in it for the money over what you're doing for these people. So match your passion with where you want to go.
I think the people that are struggling a lot at the moment are the people that are looking at their old portfolio and saying, oh, I've heard I can make more money in care and supported living. Here's my portfolio. What can you do with that? And I definitely think that's the wrong way to look at it. The way that we always work is that we find our care provider first. So rather than finding a property, doing a property, and then going out to market saying, right, who wants this? We build relationships with care providers. We find out how did they get into it? What's their passion? What's their 10-year growth plan? What areas are they looking to get into? How do they get their referrals? What types of property are they looking at? And then we collaborate with them, and we'll bring property to them and say, right, will this property suit you for X? Will this suit you for Y? Will this suit you for Z? And then we work with them the whole way through the process, the whole way through the design, all of the build, the interiors, all of that sort of stuff, making sure that everything is the correct spec for what they want to do. Because you could go and, do a lovely conversion of a beautiful Victorian 4-story house, and then go and speak to a care provider, and they're like, oh no, I do disability. It has to be wheelchair accessible. You're never going to fit that in a Victorian house, are you? So it's very important to, like we said, have your mind in the right place. Think of who this is going to be for. And it's all a collaboration. Before we jumped on this call, we were talking about collaboration and saying you physically cannot know everything. You have to understand you are a property investor or a property developer. You're not expected to know everything about care, because you've got people that have worked in it for 20 years that know all of that. You collaborate with them, bring your expertise together, and that's where the magic happens.
Absolutely. But I mean, just going back to that, and I know you guys are really passionate, but not everyone sees property as a passion project, and not everyone does that. But one of the things that would attract them is obviously potentially more money, but on top of that, it's having residential properties that potentially go into an FRI model. So that's also, incredibly powerful. And let's be fair, whether they want it or not, if there's an opportunity to help more people, even if they're not very passionate about it, they just literally want to dole their houses out to the most best. I mean, what would you say to those type of people?
Let me jump in there. You don't need to necessarily be passionate about property, but you're passionate about what it facilitates. Is it worth it? Some people hate doing property, but they're quite good at it, and they're passionate about what it does. There are many benefits to supported living. For us, the main benefit is when we walk into one of our care homes, and one of the new residents comes and grabs our hand with a massive excited smile on their face and shows them around the facility that you've created for them with such joy. Nothing beats that feeling for me. However, is it nice, like you say, if you're not as passionate about that thing, but if you do, it doesn't, you don't necessarily have to be, as long as you're doing a good job and you're helping and you're facilitating those people, right? But like you say, there is another benefit. The business model we believe to be quite good. All of the stuff that we do, we go into FRI leases. So if you're used to HMO, service accommodation, and other styles of property investment, and you're paying management fees, you're paying bills, you're paying council tax, you're paying repairs, you're paying for maintenance, and then all of a sudden your little cash flow sheet on your HMO, where you were supposed to be making a grand, 1,500 a month, goes down to 200 or in the red because you're fixing stuff all the time, then that is brilliant as well. It's as hands-off as property can be. It's never fully hands-off, but it's as hands-off as it can be, i.e. what happens is you enter into a lease with a care provider or a registered provider, right? If you don't know what they are, we provide a whole course on that, and it is important to know the roles.
We'll come back to that in a minute. That was my next question.
And it depends on the type of project and the type of scheme that you're doing. But you're essentially entering into a lease, and though under an FRI lease, the company taking that over has the obligation and the responsibility to pay you regardless of how many rooms are full. So you get the same amount of money every month. They pay all of the utility bills. They pay council tax if they have to. Sometimes it can be exempt. All repairs and maintenance. And reimburse you on the buildings insurance. So the only thing you're responsible for as a landlord is checking the bank statement to make sure that the rent's coming in, and it should be, and the building and the structure, which should all be covered by insurance.
And pay your mortgage.
Of course. And also it's important to do due diligence into the care provider as well. We can cover that in more depth if you want, but you want them to be showing you that they are upkeeping the property as they said. So depending how long you want it to be, we've got a lot of leases on 20 years plus, but you can have 2 years, 3 years, 5, 7, 10, 15, loads of different, a lease is pretty much a blank canvas. That property should be coming back to you in the same, if not better condition as you first leased it out. So we find that the margins are a lot better.
Because of all those bits that you're basically not, it's a bit like it's like in the service accommodation world and in rent to rent, that guaranteed rent, you might think you'd be getting, 800, but actually it's nearer sort of, 450, 500, that if you're not having all of those other expenses that you don't necessarily think about because they might not be so obvious, you're still making the same money.
And that's what's helped us grow as well. We love what we're about. We love the style and the type of properties that we're providing, and we like to focus fully on it. So once we've done one, we can set and forget and then focus on the next one, not spend half our time dealing with all of the maintenance, repairs, voids, payment issues, all the stuff that comes along with that. We don't deal with any of it. Yeah. Agents double charging you or not charging you enough, or not collecting rent, and
just the job in itself, isn't it? Managing.
We didn't sign up for that.
No, definitely not.
And actually that side of things, of being able to solely focus on growing the portfolio instead of managing the stock that we've already got, is probably just as, if not more valuable than the increased cash flow, because it's headspace, isn't it?
Yeah, that is in itself really powerful, isn't it? It's being able to know that you've parked that, it's doing a great job, it's doing whatever it needs to do, maybe the odd bit here and there. Obviously you need to keep an eye on things, but that is tremendously powerful. So going back to this kind of care providers, registered providers, again, this seems to be a bit of a quagmire as well. So there's a lot of talk about care providers, you've got to be a bit really careful. They might go out of business. You should really go with a registered provider. What would you say are these kind of differences? Should we be fearful of any of them?
No, and that's where we provide a lot of education and knowledge, because we went into it not understanding that properly at the very beginning, and we had to learn. Depends on the property, depends on the scheme, depends on the provider. It all depends. The best thing to do is to clearly understand their roles and responsibilities. So, what's the role of the commissioner? What's the role of the care provider? What's the role of the registered provider? And what's the role as you as a landlord? We do have an online course on all of that, but it's important to understand that and research that, and it will help you understand the clarity and how they all work together, because it's a collaboration. You shouldn't be fearful. You should do your research into the types of care providers and registered providers that you're working with. Ideally, they want to be running for a long time. There are a lot of, this is from a property developer's perspective. Okay, this is from someone that's going to use mortgages. This is from someone that's going to use angel investment. We prefer to work with people that have been in the business for a long time, that have got good accounts, decent balance sheets, they've got good reputations with the local authorities, because we know that when we go to remortgage with a bank or sell on to a fund or a person or a trust or a pension, or you do open yourself to a lot of institutional money in this industry because of the long-term lease aspect.
Exactly.
But we're
actually running a free challenge on it, which you guys might already know about. You might not.
Can we cover that at the end? Is that all right?
Yeah, of course.
I want to give it a proper talk about that. So we'll cover that in a sec. But yeah, so it sounds to me like what you're talking about is just the normal kind of due diligence, getting yourself out there and just doing masses of research on your area. And I mean, probably geographically, but also choosing your area potentially from a provider's perspective, whether it's mental health, all of those kind of things, and just going out there and just knocking on doors, chatting to people, building relationships, all of this and the other. Because I've certainly heard a few people who have literally just through word of mouth caught up with somebody. Oh, we're really looking for properties. Oh, well, I've actually got one like that. Oh, well, let's have a conversation. And then suddenly, there seems to be a really big win-win, but they seem to be kind of a bit more accidental. But what we're seeing with you guys is that you can literally go out there. Obviously, you guys sort of help and support people as well, but you can go out there and find this. So it's almost like a heavy at the front. And if you can find those great providers, whether care or supported or registered or whatever, that can then grow from there if there's a need.
Agreed. Yeah, the provider's so key, and just like you would when you source property, you put a lot of work into finding the right deals that work. It's the same. It's another layer. Transfer those skills. You want to provide. You want to find the right people to work with. It's a team effort. You want good providers. You want good people, and it'll make your business a lot more efficient and run easier. One of the biggest pitfalls is finding the right providers to work with. And also the back end exit can be difficult if you pick the wrong provider or the lease is set up wrong, and you can become unstuck.
Yeah, it does definitely depend on your personal situation though. Working with a big care provider or a big registered provider is great because they're an extremely stable business and will have a strong covenant strength. However, in your lease negotiations, you're not going to have much power. They're going to tell you what's what, and they're going to say, well, you either take it or you leave it. It's got plenty of other people. If you're working with a smaller care provider, there might be a bit more difficulty on the back end with the refinance because maybe they haven't been trading as long, maybe their balance sheet isn't as good, but you're going to have a lot more power in the negotiation to get yourself a better deal or to, essentially grow with them. If you can deliver them 5 projects and they go from 5 sites to 10, you have increased their covenant strength yourself, right? So it all depends on your own situation. Maybe if you've got a property that doesn't have a mortgage, you could take a risk on a smaller care provider. But yeah, it's all situational and dependent on where you're at. But there's nothing wrong with, taking a bit of a chance on a smaller one as long as you've done all of your due diligence, because it can reap benefits. And like myself and Max, once you've done it for a few years and you've won some awards and you've proven that you can do great projects, we've now got care providers calling us up, asking us to do projects for them, which is absolutely amazing. And that's the position you want to get yourself into.
Yeah, that's really tremendous, isn't it? You're doing the right thing, you're moving in the right direction. But that was a really perfect sort of jumping point into talking about that kind of fearful side of financing. I know, myself coming from a serviced accommodation background, there were certainly it's opening up a little bit more now, but it was kind of this sort of scary position where there'd be a furnished holiday let, and then they didn't really understand serviced accommodation, and then you would kind of feel a bit uncertain going into a deal whether you could be funding it, whether it would be the right thing for you. So how is it now? Because I understand that I believe that there's not as many products on the market for supported living. What would you say to people who are sort of thinking of coming into this arena, but have got a real fear, obviously, about, ensuring that they're not left short of pocket?
It's doing all that work up front, finding the bank to work with before you've bought it. Speaking to someone that may buy it for you before, because you want those, from a property investor's perspective, you've got to protect yourself as well. You can do this great project, but you still need the multiple exits and what if all the normal things that can go wrong in property, you've got to be covered for that anyway. Speak to the bank first. Go and speak to a broker. There's a lot of brokers that don't understand it or don't have the access to the right banks. There's not, heaps and heaps of banks, but there are banks. We work with them. And it depends on you. It depends on your property. It depends on your product. It depends what it is. The larger schemes with the longer leases, you're going to be looking at more commercial mortgages and the commercial valuations, and smaller one-bed houses, bungalows. Your general. You couldn't mistake it from a care home, supported living scheme, or a residential house. That's probably going to be more bricks and mortar. And again, banks, it all depends on the lease and the length. And so it's getting that advice up front from someone that really understands it, and getting that certainty that you can do it. And again, doing the due diligence onto the provider, doing the due diligence, all of that upfront work. It's more upfront work. But once you've done it, it's as set and forget as you like. I hope there's going to be more products coming out. I think banks don't understand it. Some of them don't want to understand it. Yeah. And I think it's them being scared that, for example, if you default on your mortgage, they think all of a sudden they're going to be booting out all of these vulnerable people onto the streets, which wouldn't necessarily happen. But for us, we're like, hang on a minute. We've done all of our due diligence and our research. We've shown you who the care provider is. We've shown you their accounts. They've got this many sites. They're based here. They have this reputation. It's government-backed money. Surely that's more risk-free than a bloody HMO or service accommodation where they've got no control over those people paying rent. So there is that argument going on a lot. I've spoken to, I know you interviewed Lisa Brown the other week, but I've spoken to her about this a few times. I know she agrees with me, but we do hope that as the industry grows, because it's still seen as a big niche, that the more products will come out, and there are ethical banks now starting to come into the marketplace that do understand it.
I love that. And also, can you maybe explain to people who might not understand it, because you started talking about, exits and institutional monies, pensions and things like that. Mm-hmm. Can you sort of explain the differences between perhaps what exit opportunities you had with your HMOs compared to what you have now?
So, hopefully more institutional, isn't it? So the benefit, sorry to interrupt you there.
Go on, you go.
The benefit that you see in these is that you are getting, somebody is buying a cash flowing asset, and potentially a cash flowing asset for 20 years, a government backed cash flowing asset for 20 years. So the institutions love it, real estate investment trusts, pensions, all the stuff that Max spoke about earlier, because the way they see it is they're happy to pay a premium on the asset because of the cash flow that's going to be coming through it. If you've negotiated a strong lease, that rent should be increasing every single year in line with inflation. That's called CPI and RPI linked inflation increases. And then at the end of the 20 years, they can either put another lease in place, or they've got a property that's probably just doubled in value over that 20 years. So for them, they see it as a fantastic investment, and they're all like desperate to buy them at the moment. So as long as you've got everything, the right things in place, you've got the right provider, due diligence done, lease is correct, then an institutional exit at a commercial valuation is a very real thing.
So is that what you're doing? Are you looking at exiting? Is that what you do? You buy, you set it up, and then you exit? What is your...
We make works for those types of people. But again, it depends. If you've got a one-bedroom property on a 2, 3, 4, 5 year lease, you're still probably looking at, if you wanted to get out of that, selling that on the open market to investor that someone like us that understands it, that wants to park a bit of their own cash in. If you've got a 14 apartment scheme or a big care home or something even larger, it's very unlikely that a man on the street is going to park millions into that one property. You still can do it. But we would go to commercial agents that would go to institutional places to buy them. And that's where you will get cash purchase quite quickly. You need to meet certain criteria, and it depends who you speak to, but it's family offices, trusts, pension funds that would buy these sorts of things. If they're larger and the lease is more long-term, shorter-term stuff, it's still going to be your stereotypical, open market sale or through an agent that understands it and has got people in the market that want to buy those sorts of investments. And like I previously mentioned, it's important to get your exit, especially in this, understood and sorted out, or at least have those conversations before you go into it, because who you sell to is going to depend on the length of the lease that you're going to want to put in place and who you're working with.
Wow.
Help?
That's mind-blowing, isn't it? I mean, no wonder it's an exciting strategy, because I know that a lot of people have this thing that, you are going to make loads of money along the way. But from what I understand it, to really have a proper working business, we're actually talking about guaranteed rent, basically, over really long.
I will interrupt you there. Don't like the word guaranteed, because it is, if you set it up with the right person, it's close to, but at the end of the day, you're still getting paid by a business. So it's up to that business how they run, and up to them how they operate. They are then paid by quite often a local authority, or it could come from a charity, or there are a few different, but you're in contract with a business. You're not in direct contract with the government. So there is a business in control, and if they run themselves down the pan or go bust, then you will be at the forefront of that. But hopefully, if you do your due diligence right and you're working with the right people, and there's still a little bit of a risk, but it is as close to guaranteed as you can get. But I don't like saying the word guaranteed.
I agree, but inherently what I'm trying to explain is you have got this kind of rather than a normal rental, even if it is kind of still normal rental, the difference between you having an FRI is a big chunk of cash, basically, where you're saving a lot per month. So it's kind of like that level there.
One thing that I say to anybody, if they've got property investments, HMO, service accommodation, do it at 100% occupancy, and then take away all your repairs, maintenance, tax, utilities, agents fees, cleaning fees. Take all that away and see what you get every month. That you will get that every month. Yeah,
that's really powerful. And then not only that, so that's kind of like a really, that's great in itself. Then obviously you've got the moral and the values of being able to genuinely help a lot of people that really, really need a lot of help and support in the community. But then actually you're then tapping into kind of that mecca in property, where you're looking at commercial valuations on those properties, and that's absolutely enormous.
And this is why all the institutional money is coming in, because they see that it really is a win-win-win-win for everyone. It's a growing market as well. Sadly, for whatever reasons, there are more and more people who require this supported living. So it's not like, one day you've got something and the next day you haven't. This is a really growing sector of people that genuinely need a lot of help and support. So it's, it is going to be growing.
It is. And I think it's stable as well. We've kind of compared it to SA, and it is being spoken about in the same way that SA was a few years ago, of, this new trend of property investment. I think the difference that you've got with supported living is that it is actively encouraged and backed by local councils and central government. SA's obviously been through a bit of a whirlwind over the past however many months, and local councils and governments have kind of decided that they don't really like it now. there's never going to come a day where the local council turn around and say, "Now we no longer support vulnerable people." They're always going to back it. They're always going to be increasing it, because actually we're helping them solve a problem. So I can't remember the exact numbers, so please don't quote me on it. But for example, to have someone in hospital, say they've been sectioned and they're in hospital, it would cost the government maybe $4,000 a week to look after that person.
I think it's over $1,000 a night.
Really?
Yeah.
A night?
Yeah.
No.
It is.
All right.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's an extortionate amount of money. To have them in supported living, it costs them something like £2,000. So it's you're helping them solve a problem. You're reducing the amount of money that they're having to spend per person, because you're getting them into a more independent, a more secure situation
without taking up hospital beds and,
exactly
taxpayers' resources, basically.
So there would be no reason for them to turn around and suddenly make it really, really difficult for you to do it. I do think that it's important that regulation is in place and that anybody that's doing it is doing it correctly. And maybe that could be tightened up slightly. But all in all, it's a fantastic industry to be in. And I think the future is really, really bright for it.
Even to the point where, people that are maybe a little bit concerned, like Birmingham City Council went bankrupt recently. We've got services in Birmingham and they have redacted a lot of their stuff that they're paying for. We're still getting paid for our services because vulnerable people come at the top of what is important.
I would imagine that the government would jump in with that sort of thing, isn't it? I think that's what I understand when these local councils go bust. The government still pay for all the bits that have to keep going. So this would definitely, they're not going to put vulnerable people on the streets, are they? So yeah, you're absolutely right. That is, yeah. Look, we've got a couple of questions, and then I really want you to tell us how how we can get people to really help in this industry. And I know you're doing some absolutely fantastic stuff. So Ian has said, have you just moved HMOs into supported living space or smaller buy-to-lets too?
No. So what we have done is we design and develop bespoke property for care providers. It is possible to change HMOs and buy-to-lets into it, but for us personally, we like to do a bespoke design from start to finish, working collaboratively with the care provider, making sure that the commissioner's referrals are all there, and really, making sure that property is purpose-built for what they want it for.
I'll just jump in. So people can do that. It depends on the HMO. It might need some redesign and stuff. We've still got all of ours. We still keep them. But it is exactly the same as, say, I don't know your personal situation, but if I was to go out and find a HMO, I research the local area, I run my numbers on properties, I understand where the demand is, the right roads to buy them on, and then I go out and I do a HMO conversion. So I might buy an older one and do it up. It's the same what we do. We're going out, we're doing our due diligence into the demand, the best areas. That third layer of doing due diligence into the right care providers and speaking to them about where they need property. And then we go out and we purchase and develop or refurb to what they need.
It really is like made to measure, so to speak, which is it's kind of the same, but we kind of want to take what a lot of people want to do, don't they? Is they want to take what they've got and I suppose squeeze a round peg into a square hole, so to speak. But what you're saying is it's actually better.
It much depends on your facility, but it doesn't always work like that. It really depends. Again, it's once you get in with that provider, then have a conversation. Oh, by the way, I've got this. Would that work? They might go, yeah, actually, that'd be perfect. Or they might say, it's a bit small, or it could do with an extension here, or we could do that. And then you decide if you want to run the numbers and do up your own stuff. Why wouldn't you look at your own stock first if you want to change it? Because you already own it. So if you need to make patients.
So sorry. So have you already? We can talk all day about this, but have you already then fixed everything up before you even buy it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
You've basically done everything so that once you're purchasing that property, you know exactly what you're going to do with it. Obviously, that gives you the amount that you're going to spend on it, and you know where you're going to head down as far as an exit as well.
The rent's negotiated, the agreement for lease is signed, we would have had chats with potential buyers if we don't want to keep it and know roughly what they're going to buy it for. It's unlike, that grey area of HMOs. You don't know if you're going to get that commercial valuation. You don't know what the yield is. You know what the yield is in this. You know what people are going to buy it for based on the rents. You can work it out, and it's really clear on what your numbers are.
Yeah, the way that we teach it, we call it our supported living process. And the whole idea, like you just said, is that you have got all of your ducks in a row. Everything is lined up. You know exactly what is going to happen. And then when you press the button and the property is exchanged and completed on, you are just doing the plan. Yeah. You're just following the plan, following the steps, and just piecing the puzzle together. That's it. By that point that you buy the property, you shouldn't really be making any decisions after that, apart from when things go wrong, which they always do. But you've got the blueprint, you know exactly what you're doing, how long it's going to take you, who's going to be in it. It's all right there. And it's important to do it that way, because otherwise, you can find yourself in some sticky situations. Otherwise, that's always the way that we coach it.
Amazing. Look, Ian's just put as well, I can resonate with the confusion, as I have been a CFO in the NHS for decades now and will be exiting at the end of December. I want to be able to help others navigate the health and care industry better. Well, that's perfect, Ian. I'm now going to pass back over to these guys, because I know that with the knowledge that Alex and Max have done, is they are literally wanting to help as many people as they can. And as you can see, I've been really drawn to them because they're such genuine, lovely people in wanting to help and especially to do it in the right way. And that's where it's been so hard, isn't it? To really understand and to have, you've got people saying, do this, do that, do the other. But you really need a bit of hand holding at certain stages.
Process to make it make sense.
Exactly. So please, because I know you're actually offering something for free, which is incredibly generous. Can you tell us, what you're up to?
Yeah, of course. So it is called our supported living. Our coaching service is called the Supported Living Platform. If anyone's interested, check us out on Instagram, Facebook, or the website, www.thesupportedlivingplatform.co.uk. So what we hear from everyone, and whether you're in property, not in property, all of that sort of stuff, the biggest hurdle that people find in care is connecting with a care provider, which is also probably the most important. And we've had a lot of people saying, I really want to get into care, I really want to get into supported living, but I just don't know where to find care providers. Care's a funny industry. They don't need to market. So you could have a care company that has been going for 20 years, has 300 sites, and you've never heard of them. I bet most of the people on this call probably couldn't name 3 care companies, unless it's one that they've seen down the road that they walk past every day or something.
You're right.
Not that you're necessarily aware of. So unless you know where to find them, you just don't know. It's one of those you don't know until you know. So we are hosting a 3-day challenge that is going to take place on tomorrow evening, 7:30 to 8:30. So Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. And we are basically going to coach you through how to find care providers, how to do your due diligence on them to find out whether they are good or not, because there are plenty of not so good ones out there and we don't want to work with those. Right. And basically creating a contact list of care providers that you can contact. And then on the second day, we're going to kind of flip the script a little bit and teach you how to position yourself in a positive light and in an attractive way so that care providers want to work with you. Because you never know, they probably do have a queue of people wanting to work with them. So how do you put yourself at the front of that queue? How do you speak their language? Very difficult thing to do, something that can take some time and a few phone calls to understand all of the terminology. How best to collaborate with them, what to pitch to them, how to use your social media or maybe some photos and videos that you have to put forward to them in a bit of a pack and say, this is my proposal. This is what I want to do for you. And then on day 3, everything that you learn on day 1 and day 2, we're going to talk about how you monetize it and how you turn it into an actual business that not only you're doing one project for them, but you're continuing to do more and more and grow bigger and bigger. And like we said, get to the point where you've got care providers calling you up saying, "Oh, I've seen you've done this amazing care home for care company X, and we would like you to do some for us." So yeah, we're super excited about it. Like I said, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 7:30 to 8:30. It's going to be good fun. It's nothing too deep or serious. As you can tell, we're pretty chill guys. So yeah, we would love to see any of you there, any of you that can make it.
Oh,
anything you want to add?
No, yeah, I think that was brilliant. It's just an hour every evening. Might have a little bit of homework. We want it to be interactive. We want you to get involved and show to you that it's possible. Yeah, come along. You can register. How can they register?
I put a link. Yeah, I put a link on this. So yeah, and then we'll put a link across Facebook, and we'll also pop it on YouTube as well. So obviously if it's after the event and you're listening to this, there may be another challenge coming up, so do go and jump onto the website and go and have a look at that. But I know I'm definitely jumping on this. I think it's an incredibly generous offer that you're doing, and I can't wait to find out more information. And look, Richmond has already just registered, so that is so great. I know there's going to be so many people. You're going to be absolutely inundated, and I'm definitely going to be sharing this because I'm exactly the same as you. It's kind of looking at the ways, everything in my business is always looking at my like my customer reviews. So therefore, I know that my customer is happy. So that's everything that I do in my business. If it's not helping somebody to give a good review, then is it worth what I'm doing? And you guys, it's like that, but 10x, isn't it? It's like Grant Cardone, like bashing it. It's, to get such positive community input is not easily done. So I really, I really take your hats off, hat off literally to you guys for doing this and to really going out of your way to keep pushing and pushing and pushing to get that knowledge to be able to start moving and to be able to help, so many people. So yeah, so what we'll do is just a quick closing something from you guys. But yeah, do remember guys that this will be going on to YouTube. And it will be later on this afternoon. Please do jump on this challenge. It's 3 days. It's totally free. If you're interested in supported living and property, this is an absolute no-brainer. I'm really, really excited. So yeah, back over to Alex and Max. Please give us something to close with, perhaps your journey and why it feels so great to be here.
I think a good thing and something that I always like to close with is that if you want to get into this industry, please make sure that you are doing it for the right reasons. It is an industry, like I've said, which has been taken advantage of for a long time, and there is good money to be made in it. But the care circle, like the property circle, and even more so probably, is a very small circle. If you start doing things the wrong way and you start getting a bad reputation, like it's over for you. So we absolutely want as many people to be coming into this industry as possible, because the waiting lists are as long as my arm. But we want people to be coming in, doing it for the right reasons, and do a good job to actually help the industry, not just help themselves.
Amazing. Thanks, Alex. Max, did you want to say anything?
Look, it's a great time to get into it. It's still seen as quite a niche. There's a lot of opportunity there. The time is now, not tomorrow, not the day after. Check it out. Come and see us. Good things come to those who wait. Great things come to those who don't. So that's what I like to say to that.
You got some good quotes. I'm going to have to start writing these down and getting them out on the socials with ChatGPT giving me some support information. So I'm loving it. You've come up with some.
I promise my hands are free.
There's some real corkers. Well, look, guys, thank you. I really, really appreciate it. I know you're really busy getting ready for your challenge, and I really highly recommend everyone who is wanting to get into this, and I know so many people are. Please do jump on and get all this free support, which is incredibly generous. So yeah, again, thank you so much, guys. I'm going to end the rooms now. Alex and Max, if you could just wait there for 2 secs. But again, thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.